There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and I'm here with my co-host, the very talented Joe Stanley. Welcome, Joe.
Awesome to see you, Darcy. Here we are, warm and snug inside our House of Wellness headquarters. Winter is upon us, which for me generally means lots of soups, dals, you know, all the mushy foods like curries and stews, lots of mashed potato, which I know you'd be right on board with.
I must admit, a spud anytime is always going to get me, but I'm also a big fan of a nice, healthy winter soup, I have to say, Joe.
Well, apart from eating, it's also the best time to head outdoors and just breathe it in. Nature is a scientifically proven antidote for stress. Spending time in the fresh air lowers the blood pressure, strengthens our immune system, improves our mood and fitness levels, and just makes you feel great. So, are you a winter or a summer person, Darcy?
Well, I have to say I'm a lover of all seasons, Joe, especially here in Melbourne when you can get all four in one day, as you well know.
Yes.
Now, no matter what the season, today's show is a celebration of nature. We'll look at how charities like the Salvos are helping the nation rebuild in the wake of the summer bushfires. It'll take some time, but the land is starting to rejuvenate, which is a great thing.
Here's another celebration, Darcy. Cocktails. Hines has got an organic cocktail that's sure to spice up your life and mine.
All that, Joe, and more to come. But first, it is, as we said, the time of year to pull on the gumboots, head outside, maybe even to the forest to forage for food. Now, the woods come alive this time of year, especially with wild mushrooms.
I love mushrooms, and I'm going to sound like Hinesy, but they're packed with protein, fibre, vitamins and minerals, and one of the highest antioxidant foods around. There's an incredible range of different varieties, and best of all, they pop up everywhere, especially after some rain. But here's the downside. Some fungi are fatal.
Slight downside.
There it is, yeah.
So how do you spot the difference between an edible slippery jack and a poisonous death cap? Well, Luke Hines headed into the woods with celebrity chef Gary Meehan, who knows what to look at, what to pick, and most importantly, what not to eat.
Yeah, it's funny, like when you go out, you don't see them and then you find the first one. I mean,
if there's anything that gets Gary Meehan's chef juices flowing, it's fresh produce. And if he finds it himself, well, you can't get any fresher than that.
because what you're looking for is like little lifts, aren't you?
That's it,
But when it comes to foraging for mushrooms, he likes backup. And that's where Elijah Holland comes in. Like Gary, he's all about the local ingredients. Plus, he really knows his mushies.
Oh, look at that.
That is another.
Luke, there's another one for you.
Yeah, baby.
For the wall. And what do you reckon if you're buying that and trying to put that through the restaurant? 50, 55?
Oh, yeah, easy.
Bucks plus.
Elijah puts foraged foods at the centre of his menu in Melbourne eatery Lou May. Think fresh seaweed, roots and wild herbs. And that's EJ style.
But you're chatting and I'm looking behind. There's another one there, look.
So there was no way Elijah was missing out on a forage for mushrooms in Gary's backyard. Well, it's really the forest behind his place, but it's proving to be one hell of a pantry.
I feel like all I want to do is look. I don't want to miss one.
It's no secret I'm mad about mushrooms, but like Gary, I'm very happy to be guided by an expert. With so many varieties that look delicious but are deadly, it's a job for someone who knows what to look for.
And this is where I get scared, is because they go, this mushroom is almost identical, but maybe the gills of the mushroom don't connect with the stalk.
That's it.
That one's poisonous, the other one's edible, and you go, ooh.
And with mushrooms, if it rains, and the thing is mushrooms come in rain, in rainy season, but the thing is with rain, it can wash all the colour off the top of a mushroom, so it can look like one thing one day, and then about 4 hours later, it can look like a different thing.
You heard it. Some mushrooms can actually change their appearance. So to be safe, there's really only a few types that are forage friendly, like grey ghosts, slippery jacks and pine mushrooms.
So I think we got one we can eat. But where's the pine tree? Oh, it's behind us.
Yep. So this is a pine.
Yeah.
This is a pine.
Let's have a look.
Near the pine tree. Why wouldn't you just pull it out? What's the deal with cutting it neatly?
The deal with cutting it is because you're leaving all the spores and essentially the roots in the ground, and you're going to let it keep growing and kind of inoculating the rest of the ground. If you are going to pull it out by the roots, I wouldn't be carrying a container like that. It'd be something with holes, so then as you walk and drop it, it's going to drop spores everywhere.
Yeah. I'm looking for the little tear-off paper bags so I can carry them with me, store them correctly. Here we go. May I do the honours?
Mate, it's a ripper.
And it's a good one too.
Big.
And you know what's nice about it? It's not been, it doesn't look, there's no damage on it. And it's that, see that little dip?
That dip.
You're getting good, I reckon you could pick these going forward. You'd know what you're eating. Maybe.
That's an absolute primo one for a restaurant.
Look at that.
The colour. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I feel like I'm now the mushroom king. It's a nice mushroom. And the bonus about foraging with these two is they've got every possible application of our haul worked out already. It's a true masterclass.
You know, pickle them. I dry them in the oven.
Yeah,
you know, set the oven at like 50 degrees, slice them and dry them, and then just put them in a jar. And then
we've got probably about 150 kilos pickled in the deli at Paran Market, and also in at Lume as well. We grill them and pickle them straight up.
So it's another great, if you do pick too many when you're foraging, the pickling's a fantastic solution.
Pickling or drying.
But still, I think the best rule of thumb is to pick what you actually think you're going to use. Even when we go into the forest, we won't harvest everything from one area. We'll span the whole forest.
Yeah.
And so that means we know if we need to come back, we get some, or if I send a friend out, they'll be able to get some as well.
It's kind of like surfing etiquette. It's mushroom etiquette.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Foraging is as much about what you don't take, both for sustainability and for safety. And let me tell you, just when you start to feel a bit more confident about choosing the edible ones, along comes an imposter, just to keep you on your toes. Now, these look like field mushrooms, yeah?
That's the thing. They can be extremely deceptive. Look, we'll take one over and we'll have a look, but even though they do look like field mushrooms and they got all the traits and characteristics, I still wouldn't touch them because there's a really poisonous one in the family, fly agaric, and it looks almost identical. Without knowing exactly 100% what it is, it's not worth the risk. So I just leave it where it is.
That's crazy, because to me, if I was doing this alone, I'd say that's a sure bet. So anything I've learnt from today is that if in doubt, even if a shadow of a doubt or similarity, don't do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the weird thing is it smells, smell that. It's like you're in the supermarket picking up a field mushroom.
But you can never rely on your nose at all, whatsoever. It has to be 100%.
I tell you what, these look like they would have been good in their day.
And when you're standing here now, you've got the eye now, haven't you?
I'm addicted.
Can you eat that one? That's the question.
You can. EJ, you've taught me so much today, thank you. And Gary, I'd hate these to go to waste. And you said fresh is best, so what do you reckon?
I don't think we can not cook something with those. They're beautiful.
I can't wait. Thanks, EJ. Let's get cooking.
Thanks, EJ. That's beautiful.
Well, who knew there was so much richness out there in our forests? But, I would want to take an expert with me, I
Probably
think.
sounds like a sound thing to do, I think,
so.
Joe. Well, from foraging in the woods to fine dining, after the break, Heinzie and Gary turn their forest haul into a delicious risotto. That's next on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. Before the break, Luke Hines teamed up with top chefs Gary Meehan and Elijah Holland on a mushroom hunt, Joe.
It looked fantastic, Das, and super fun thing to do, looking for mushies while you're on your forest stroll. But as we saw, there's a huge range out there and many are poisonous, so I reckon it's probably a good thing to know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, when you think Gary is one of the best chefs around, but even he was wary of what to pick, he has lots of faith in Elijah, who is genuinely known as the top mushroom guy. He really knows his stuff when it comes to fungi. OK, so finding them is one thing, but cooking them up is probably the best part, I would say anyway. So let's check out what the master chef himself, Gary Meehan, does with fresh mushies from their forage in the forest.
Gary, it doesn't get fresher than this. Total paddock to plate, or should I say bush track to kitchen.
Yeah.
What should we do with them?
It feels special, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it really does. It feels special. But they're beautiful mushrooms. Remember, we got the grey ghost, the pine mushrooms, and these were a little boletus. I think we found some slippery jacks. So I peeled those. These pine mushrooms, I've wiped them, brushed them. You can wash the upper side very carefully or with a damp cloth, but don't soak them.
They're like a sponge. They're going to take all that water off.
Yeah, and you don't need to. If you're careful with them and you've picked the right mushrooms, it doesn't get any better. So we'll give them a chop. I mean, if you want to chop a few more of those, we probably don't need all of them.
Yeah.
But I use a two-pan system, you know. we're all in a hurry.
Yep.
And we can use one pan, which is great, but I want some caramelisation. So I'm going to fry some mushrooms.
Yep.
I'm going to sweat or, very gently cook the onion and garlic with a few herbs.
Brings out
and
that sweetness.
And then I'm going to start throwing it all together. So if you chop a few more mushrooms,
Yep.
and I'll light stove, light pans, and I'll fry some.
This is so cool to see how the master chef himself navigates the kitchen. And let me tell you, this is a real pro at work. No recipe, just gut instinct.
And I'm not going to leave a skerrick of flavour in there. I'm going to deglaze it with a bit of stock so it all ends up in this risotto.
You know what I'm loving? This golden yellow colour from the pines.
They're
It is
beautiful.
so good.
And surprising, isn't it? Look at that.
It looks like we've added turmeric.
I know.
For a risotto, you don't want it to be overpowered. What's a good ratio, between your rice and your...
You know what? I think that's up to you. This could be a mushroom dish with very little rice, or it could be a risotto with very few mushrooms. In fact, you could cook the risotto as a plain risotto with cheese and just put the fried mushrooms on top.
So this is what I love about creating food. Anything goes if you've got the confidence. And for Gary, that know-how is enhanced with ingredients that exude flavour. Mate, that garlic. Tell me
isn't it?
about that garlic. Is this yours?
Yeah. I got enough garlic this year to do me the whole year. So I got about 50 heads of garlic. And
You're growing it out here, yeah?
yeah, well, I'm just about to replant. Because you got to replant by June, and then by spring I'll be getting, spring, summer, I'll have a beautiful crop. Like here, look. It's big stuff. It's still covered in dirt, right? But that's been hanging in my garage for, 6-7 months now, and I've still got another 20, 30 heads in the garage.
Do you have a favourite ingredient?
There's seasonal things. Like right now, I'm eating as many pines as I can.
Yep.
Because they're not around for long, enjoy them, and then they go away.
Okay.
And I have to wait till next year.
Yeah.
And it's the same with tomatoes. When they're in, and I use them on everything.
And knowing when to stop is just as important. It means the difference between a really good dish and one that's prepared to perfection.
Because we can go as far as you want to go.
Beautiful.
But there is a trick where you take a grain and you push it on your finger, and they always say it should leave a little starchy star. It's really close, isn't it?
It is so close.
I'm going to have a taste.
It's moments.
Moments away.
Yeah.
In goes the cheese.
Yeah.
And actually, we've got a bit already grated, so we'll do it. We'll chuck that in. You're just going heavy, aren't you?
I'll tell you what, enough about the rice, swelling. My taste buds are swelling right now.
Oh, what a line. What a line. And then we'll put in a bit of mascarpone. So have a taste of that. We might put a bit of pepper in, I think. Tastes all right?
That is so good.
Does it need more cheese, more butter, more stock? I think we're close. That's pretty damn good.
And as Gary has been known to say, time to plate up.
Little bit of parmesan.
Yeah, just a little bit. Should we dig in?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm pleased with that because the colour of those pines,
Look at that. Look at that pine right there.
gorgeous. Lovely.
Now that's a mushroom risotto.
Oh, how delicious was that? I tell you what, when it comes to beautiful, warming winter food, risotto has to be at the top. And if it's made by Gary Meehan, I think I would love it even more. What about you, Das? Do you love a risotto?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every single day. That looked fantastic. Stay with us because after the break, we take a look at Australia's road to bushfire recovery. Plus, the experts help asthma sufferers breathe a little easier right here on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. You're watching the House of Wellness. When the global pandemic hit, it pushed every other news story to the side, understandably. But what got lost was the aftermath of the bushfires that ravaged the country earlier in the year. The fires burnt around 18 million hectares of land, which is the equivalent of the size of Syria. We're talking about huge loss and devastation all around, Joe.
It was a truly horrific summer that was overshadowed by the pandemic that followed. And it's really only now that we're seeing some of the silver lining, like releasing some of the koalas back into the wild and hearing amazing stories of support and mateship with emergency accommodation, food and supplies and donations.
Well, the salvos alone raised $41 million, Joe, which is an incredible response. And that helped set up evacuation centres and emergency response units during the fires. And now their focus is on rebuilding and recovery.
I caught up with the Salvos Chief Secretary, Winsome Merritt, for an update on how much they've already helped affected communities and to find out what more still needs to be done.
$250,000 meals, and about 227,000 light refreshments.
They don't say thank God for the Salvos for nothing.
We gave out vouchers for people who needed immediate relief. We helped to organise rent or assistance for people to stay, accommodation for people to stay overnight, lending a listening ear. People see the uniform, they want to talk to someone, want to talk about their experience, want to debrief.
The Salvos are geared up for any crisis, but the fires were so extensive, this was to be a support service like no other. It was a massive operation, a rotation of volunteers embedded in recovery hubs 24 hours a day.
People in rural Australia are resilient, and given that many of these people, or a number of them, had already been experiencing significant drought, and then to experience bushfires. Some in the north experienced floods at the same time. So the scale and the enormity of the disaster really required the Australian public to come together and to help. And they did magnificently. So did Chemist Warehouse. And we're incredibly appreciative of their $1.5 million donation to our bushfire appeal.
That's a huge donation from Chemist Warehouse. A big thank you to them.
And in addition, I understand they've given $250,000 worth of vouchers to people who've been impacted by these fires to assist them. So incredibly generous.
So for those of us who were not in those affected areas and were deeply concerned for our fellow Australians, and we did donate, how were you able to use those donations?
I think there's a total of about 41 million raised. We've spent 22 million to date, assisted 11,500 households.
Rebuilding is now underway. Families shattered by a disaster that took everything from them can now see there is a way back from a time that seemed irreparable.
The needs in the first 6-12 months are quite acute, and as people begin to move through the trauma and the loss and the grief, then other needs often emerge. And so it's not just housing, which is really important, but it's also processing the trauma. So over the next 2 to 3 years, those funds will be spent helping people re-establish in their own communities.
While a global pandemic overshadowed this national crisis, the Salvos are the one constant, and they're in it for the long haul.
I can appreciate that they would have felt forgotten. Our workers have been working really hard to ensure that their needs are met. It never happens quickly enough. It just never happens quickly enough.
One thing about the Salvos, Darcy, they are always there. The Salvos say the bushfire recovery will take at least 3 years. They do incredible work and promise that they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, and along with the amazing effort by charities, the federal government has put an extra $150 million into native wildlife and habitat recovery, and the money will be rolled out from now for the next 2 years. Joe?
From rebuilding the health of our land to making sure our kids thrive, Hines and GQ are here with a vitamin fix guaranteed to spice up our lives.
GQ, it is happy hour, and at Luke's Bar, everything is good for you, including this cayenne and turmeric cocktail.
Looks incredibly nourishing, Heinzie, and I'm looking forward to visiting Luke's Bar, particularly with the turmeric and the ginger and the oranges. Look superb.
Well, I'm one step ahead of you with this, mate, because I'm actually using whole oranges in this baby, which is to help boost our immunity. But did you know that orange juice at the supermarket is actually fortified with vitamin D, which also helps your immunity?
Vitamin D is a unique vitamin, Heinzie, and particularly useful for the younger people in our lives.
Well, I'm all ears, mate. On behalf of my nieces and nephew, Charlie and Mimey, Willow and Sophia, fire away.
Vitamin D is interesting, Heinzie, because it's not found in many foods, unlike many other vitamins. And we call it the sunshine vitamin. So it's made when we go out into the sun. Now, of course, we need to be careful about sun protection when we go outside. But for those people who don't get outside all that much, or they live in areas where there is low sunshine, vitamin D can end up being in low levels.
Well, we're very lucky living here in sunny Australia, aren't we? Now I want you to hold that thought while I blitz. I tell you what, GQ, this is looking like a very sunny cocktail. Now, why is it important that we and kids have a lot of vitamin D?
Heinzie, in general, we know that vitamin D is useful in helping with weight loss. It's useful in reinforcing our immune function and also important to reduce the risk of depression. But in kids, it's really important for their bone development. So as they're growing, their bones are fusing together, helping form good structure. And it's also useful for helping them with their really, really strong teeth as their adult teeth replace their baby teeth.
What if parents want their kids to grow up big and strong like me and you?
So, Heinzie, spending time outside is really important, so as well as getting the sunshine. But if parents need to improve levels of vitamin D, it is available in supplement form.
Well, GQ, on that note, here is my turmeric and cayenne cocktail. Let's head outside and get some vitamin D.
Thank you, Heinzie. Cheers to you.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Oftalin, Australia's #1 bone health brand.
Coming up, a leading dietitian serves up the facts on histamine intolerance, plus GQ answers some of your health questions right here on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. If you're one of the many Australians who suffer from allergies, you might get symptoms like red eyes, runny nose, itchy skin and headaches. It's not a lot of fun at all, Jo.
No, Das. And when you hear those kinds of symptoms, you'd think of antihistamines, which are medicines that tame the allergy symptoms. But if you suffer from histamine intolerance, that's a whole new ballgame, Das. While we all produce histamines naturally in order for our immune systems to work properly, some people have an excess of histamines that cause all kinds of problems like irritable bowel, anxiety and fatigue.
Yeah, it's a condition that's gaining a lot more interest with an estimated 1% of the population who could be histamine intolerant, Jo.
So when it comes to histamines, how much is too much and how do we know if we've developed a histamine intolerance? Heinzie checked in with a top dietitian to find out more.
Simone, in simple terms, can you tell me what a histamine is?
A histamine is a compound, a chemical compound, that is a good chemical that's made by your body, but we also get some from our food. And it's really important in terms of our digestive system and our immune system.
What does it mean when someone presents with a histamine intolerance?
So it means that the histamine levels in their body don't come down when they should. So they stay up high. So we get the histamine out there. It goes around the body to where it needs to cause the inflammation to happen, which is part of the repair process. And then the body says, that's enough, sends out these enzymes to break down the extra histamine to bring it down to a level that we want it to be. But when you've got the intolerance, those enzymes aren't going out there, or we think you don't have enough of them, and the histamine level goes up. So some of the symptoms can be quite vague. Often people are not quite sure that this is what it is. And so they'll present, say, to a dietitian and they'll talk about, oh, I've got some irritable bowel type issues, which could be bloating, but it could be a headache, can even be skin rash. So they'll often present and not know what it is, and then sometimes you have to try and help them work out that it is a histamine intolerance.
How do you diagnose a histamine intolerance?
It'd be lovely if it was a simple blood test or taking a biopsy or something, but it's not quite that simple, unfortunately. That usually is an elimination diet based on your symptoms. You hope they settle down and then you reintroduce your foods.
What are some of the foods we should be avoiding when we have a histamine intolerance?
So we should be avoiding things like your shellfish, legumes, even egg whites we have to be a little bit careful with, strawberries and citrus fruits, which actually aren't high in histamine, but they actually trigger off the enzymes to not break down the histamine. So it becomes a bit tricky there. They're not high in histamine, but they can have an issue. Pineapple as well. Fermented things like wines and beer, sauerkrauts, olives, vinegar, sourdough type breads, often things that we think are good, but they develop high histamine levels.
So on the elimination diet, we're getting rid of high histamine foods for good or just a short period of time?
No, just a short period of time. So if you do the elimination diet, it's going to help you try and reduce the symptoms to see if they get better. Then what we should do is we should start reintroducing those foods to find our level. And the reason it's so important to reintroduce the foods is that a diet with as much variety as possible is what's really healthy for us. In fact, there's research showing that if you can have 30 different plant foods in a week, then that is going to reduce our risk of chronic disease.
So what can you eat on a histamine diet?
So most of your unprocessed foods are really good. So most of your fruits and veggies, kiwi fruits, your melons, most berries, but not so much strawberries. And then your veggies, think your carrots, your beans, peas, cauliflower, broccoli. So most of the veggies, just not so much your spinach and tomatoes. Animal proteins like your meat, most of your fish, chicken, they're all okay. Just shellfish we have to be a bit careful of because that's higher in histamines. So watch out for your lobster when you're wanting to have that, Luke.
It's not on my budget. Simone, what role do antihistamines play in all this? Is it someone that would have a histamine intolerance, would pop them all the time to help manage that?
No, I don't think that would be the way to try and long-term control your histamine intolerances. Plus, your histamine intolerance doesn't mean your histamine levels are necessarily as high as they would be when you're having that bout of really bad hay fever or anything. So you can only control it, I suppose we say, naturally by controlling the foods that you put into your body. So balancing, finding for yourself how much of the different foods are going to work for you, but certainly don't beat yourself up. You haven't caused yourself to have a histamine issue by not looking after yourself or anything. We think that it's genetically to do with not having enough of the enzyme.
From eliminating certain foods from your diet to having a zero tolerance for smoking, the COVID-19 pandemic has made us all more aware of our health, particularly lung health. Jo?
While being a smoker doesn't put you more at risk of contracting coronavirus, it can make the disease more severe and give you a much greater risk of ending up in intensive care.
And well, with this in mind, the message from health authorities is clear. There has never been a better time to butt out for good.
Which is easy for us to say, right? It's really tough to give up an addiction. And for some people, cold turkey isn't for them. So I would suggest working your way through the options. The quit smoking aids you get from your pharmacy is a good place to start, like gum, sprays or patches.
Hi, I'm Jake Kisnorbo and I'm all about the latest beauty, hair and makeup trends.
And I'm Polly Harding, and working in radio, I've still got a lot to learn about the beauty biz.
Together, we're going to bust those beauty myths,
Strip things back to basics and learn a few new tricks in the process.
I'm super excited today to talk about lipsticks. For me, no makeup look is complete without the perfect shade.
So I'm probably quite like you in the sense that I'd go nude.
Yeah.
And I'd go red. And if I'm feeling crazy, I might do a bit of pink.
Ooh, go for the pink.
And if I'm going on a really crazy night out, maybe the super dark, but...
I love a burgundy lip. Matte lipsticks are always in my kit. I think they never go out of fashion and they're a staple. Right here we have 12 shades of the luscious mattes.
I've been eyeing them up and I pretty much love every colour.
Yeah, they have
really
an amazing
good colouring,
range.
isn't it?
Good colour range. As you can see there's 3 nudes that we're looking at. You've got a brown undertone, a pink and slightly warmer peachy undertones. So if you just want to reach for that peachy undertone nude, we're just going to basically work it into our skin as our natural lip colour. And now with your fingers, if you just warm up the texture, just press it in a little bit. I like it to look like it is still your lips. And it's like when I say skin to look like skin, you still want them to look quite natural.
Does that look natural?
Amazing. So now we've got a clean base and we're going to do my favourite look, nighttime look.
Yay!
Yay! What do you typically go for with the red lip?
Not too orangey. I like a little bit of a deep red. I love the red ruby slippers on Dorothy and Wizard of Oz. Random.
Good selection. Let's select the ruby red shade. It's universal and it suits everyone. I always start a red lip with the Cupid's bow. So if you grab the lipstick and simply make a cross-like symbol and then fill in the remainder of the lip. Apply the red lip liner at the end. It just makes that lip look really sharp and elevates the whole makeup look. Choosing the perfect colour lip shade is the final step, and it really can change your spirits and lift the mood for the rest of the day.
Celebrity makeup artist Jade Kisnorbo there with her usual expert advice on putting your best face forward. And the face is also Gerald Quigley's main focus today, Darth.
That's right. From ringing ears to nasal congestion and watery eyes, GQ's got the solution.
Ever wondered why your eyes are constantly wet and you're producing a lot of tears? This is a classic symptom of what we call dry eye syndrome. Lots of reasons. Some medications can cause it, but often it's just simply overuse of your eyes. Carry some drops with you and use them, lubricating eye drops, as often as you want during the day. But at night time, use one of the thicker gel type products, because during rapid eye movement sleep, our eyes are flickering constantly. From a nutritional perspective, fish oil is the key. That helps overall efficiency of the whole process. Many people find nasal congestion worries them all year round, and they're puzzled as to why. Now remember that in our nose are lots of mucus-producing cells. Their job is to trap viral or allergenic material, even dust, there to stop it going down into our lungs and causing potential issues there. When they become overworked and the mucus is unable to be cleared, that's when nasal congestion becomes a problem. So logically, using an isotonic saline, preferably without a preservative, morning and night, even once a day, to irrigate those surfaces, keep them clean and allow them to do their efficient work. Ever had ringing in your ears? It's so annoying, isn't it? And the trouble is, we really don't know a lot about it, other than the fact that it can just drive you crazy. It can be caused by excessive exposure to loud noises, sometimes trauma if you've had a head injury, sometimes infection, sometimes allergy. There is, though, a glimmer of hope. There is a specific extract of ginkgo biloba, which has now got some clinical evidence to show that it can help reduce the symptoms of tinnitus. It's worth trying.
Darth, I know we've spoken about TikTok before. It's taken over my house. We're both intrigued by this app. It's the fastest growing mobile video app going around, as we know. And just recently, TikTok has donated almost $3 million to the Peter Doherty Institute for Infection and Immunity to help their work on COVID-19.
Well, that is a great result all around. It's part of their global effort to contribute to the pandemic, which will see TikTok donate $250 million worldwide to frontline and community relief efforts, all from a social media platform that gets people doing bizarre dances. Joe, I find it very strange, I have to.
But what's great is that the Doherty Institute is recognised internationally as such a force in potentially finding a vaccine.
Yep, and as you recall, Joe, after diagnosing Victoria's first positive COVID case in January this year, scientists from the Doherty Institute grew the virus from a patient sample, the first time it had been grown outside China and then shared around the world.
And while we're on COVID and cleaning, scientists in the US have found that mobile phones carry 10 times more bacteria than most toilet seats. So given that the average person touches their phone around 2,500 times a day, then cleaning your phone more regularly is probably a good move.
2,500 times a day you touch your phone. Wow, that is a good tip. Thanks for that one, Joe. When we come back, we look at the must-have device helping many asthma sufferers right here on the House of Wellness.
Love making food, and egg slice would have to be one of my go-tos after training. It's naughty, but I probably check my phone to put my phone on mood, silent, and then go to bed. I'd definitely say Lenny Hayes. I grew up barracking for St Kilda, and I just love how hard and tough he was at the contest. I'd bite my nails. I hate skirts. Yeah, I hate skirts. Yeah. I I wanted to be an Australian diamond, a netball player. Yeah, never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be a AFLW player. If one door shuts in your life, just go and find another one. Although it's disappointing to get a bit of a door to the face, a no, you can always go and open another door and find a new journey.
Welcome back. Around 1 in 9 Aussies suffer from asthma, the inflammatory condition that affects the small airways of the lungs and causes wheezing and breathlessness, in particular serious for kids and can lead to hospitalisation.
The condition has been compared to feeling like you're trying to breathe through a straw and can drastically impact people's quality of life. While there's no known cure, asthma symptoms can be managed typically by medication that's inhaled via a puffer.
For the 2.7 million Aussies who have the condition, having the right treatments and devices close at hand is vital, especially for the young.
Oh, first child. Jerome's highly active, very active child, and I think that's great for him. Basketball, soccer, out with the dogs. If they could be outside all the time, that's their favourite thing to be and do.
While 7-year-old Jerome looks like a regular active kid, it may come as a surprise that he's part of the 1 in 9 Australians affected by asthma.
Jerome's had asthma pretty much since he was a baby, but diagnosed when he was about 1.5 years old. My husband John's got asthma as well, which I almost feel like is a blessing because he can read the signs, whereas I can't pick up on it as easily. It was tricky initially. We didn't know what triggered it. It seems like it was so many things, but as the years have gone on, we've been able to narrow it down to the hay fever, the pollens and dust for him. How's your chest?
Good.
Yeah?
So asthma is a chronic condition where the person could have trouble breathing. They get tightening of their airways. I'll often say they feel tight in the chest. There are many common triggers, but they vary so much from person to person. And the triggers are generally things like smoke, exercise, cold air, could be grass pollens. For some people it can be things such as scents and perfumes might trigger their asthma. So it is very varied.
Asthma educator Janet Williams has a passion for ensuring that sufferers are in control of their asthma and not vice versa.
There isn't a known cure for asthma, but we have plenty of medications that can help to support a person with asthma. People that are using a puffer on its own, often you'll see a mist around their head where that's all gone to the air. They're really not getting the best benefit from their medication. A spacer is a holding chamber. It slows down the exit of the medication from the puffer because it comes out quite quickly. It holds it to enable the person to take a really good breath in to get the medication down into the airways where it needs to be, rather than it just hitting them in the back of the throat.
And to help asthma sufferers get the most of their medication, it's important to get the spacer technology right. And it all happens right here in Australia.
One of the key criteria that we were working on during development was to making something which was going to be nice and easy and simple to use. So the intuitive nature of the BreathaTech range is that they can be taken directly out of the box and used by the person who is using the spacer. In particular, the anti-static device was quite an interesting product because a lot of these plastic spacers don't have a lot of anti-static materials that can go into them. So the anti-static properties allow for those small, very important particles, which are the clinical effective parts of the drug, to not interact with the spacer themselves and be delivered to the patient. It's actually testing how the drug will be introduced into the spacer and how it gets deposited. So this is really replicating the throat of a person, and this part here is replicating the lungs.
If the person's using a spacer and getting that medication into their lungs, they're more likely to be able to carry on with their life because they're treating their condition and they're getting it under control. Really, anyone throughout your life can use a spacer. Spacers are available to use with a mask for young children and even babies, right up to the elderly. So it's best to be used with any puffer medication at any age.
Oh, my God! Definitely for Jerome, his asthma triggers and his attacks have definitely changed over the years and thankfully become less. My biggest takeaway and advice for someone else, just keep managing it, keep watching it, find a really good doctor that you're comfortable with. I think Jerome doesn't mind being a little unique, so maybe maybe that's helped him. He definitely doesn't get affected by it as much now, which is great, and I think it's just come down to us understanding what's triggered it and how to prevent it.
I'm finished!
Good job.
Well, school holidays are in full swing across Australia. It's hard to believe 2 terms have already flown by and we're halfway through the school year, Jo.
Well, let's face it, we've just had a term of school holidays, then they're back in the classroom for like a nanosecond and now they're home again. I mean, it's awesome, isn't it? Anyway, got any ideas as to what to do?
I think our kids got 8 days back and then we've got them again. We love them, but anything would be helpful, Jo, if you've got something up your sleeve. Well, whatever you and your family are getting up to these holidays, enjoy and stay safe. Don't forget to head to our website at houseofwellness.com.au and tune into the House of Wellness radio show with Jo and GQ every Sunday. Thanks as always to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse, and we'll see you next time.